Alrighty. So, hello everybody. Today we have with us Jared Greer from the United States. Jared, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get kicked
Yeah,
off?
absolutely. I'm an executive coach. I'm a professional coach. I have a coaching and training company. So generally, I work with executives, entrepreneurs, but really we run the gamut on anybody who's trying to enhance their performance. And so, while we generally work with executives and entrepreneurs, we've really worked with pretty much anybody you could think of.
Sounds pretty fun. So, basically, the main reason, Jared, I thought I'd invite you in today is because through my sort of journey so far as an entrepreneur, I've found that one of the biggest challenges I've had, and I've found a lot of other entrepreneurs have as well, is coming up against that feeling of sacrificing all your personal goals and personal life, even for professional success. And a lot of us have learned the hard way, but have figured out later that probably it doesn't have to be so. So, seeing this is something that I think you're quite passionate about, I thought we'd have a chat to you about it today and get a few tips and tricks off you.
Yeah, awesome.
So, do you want to kick us off and tell me a little bit about your backstory? So, how did you end up doing this? And yeah, what led you here?
Yeah, so it really is a conglomeration of a lot of experiences that has brought me here. I'm an endurance athlete, so I got about probably, let me actually back up even a little bit more. So I was able to manage a group of people at a pretty young age. And to be honest with you, I had no business managing anybody at that point. But our company had been growing really, really fast. And basically, they just needed somebody with a pulse to sit in a manager seat and tell other people what to do. So I stepped into that role again. I was probably, maybe 22, 23.
Yeah.
I was not nearly as mature as you, so I know you are way far beyond where I was back then. But I just didn't know what to do, and so I kind of had this mentality of I'm going to make everybody my friend, and then I'm going to manage that way. And then that shifted to, well, these people aren't performing, so I've got to get rid of people. And so I really had this kind of mindset of I'm going to blame the performance of my team on the individuals. Well, about that same time, I also had a friend who started inviting me to do running and some endurance type of sports. And I just had this weird experience where when I would go out and run, you'd go and you'd run a hill or you'd run a trail or you'd run in a race. And it just sounded a little crazy to blame your performance on the road or the weather or the incline. You couldn't help but say, well, other people are running the same path and they're doing really well.
Mm.
What are they doing differently than I'm not? And so it really forced me to be accountable for my own performance. So that was kind of like the first awakening, if you will. I then continued down this path of endurance sports and racing. And that just became more and more ingrained to where eventually I was like, well, if I'm thinking about that for my own physical exercise, what if I thought like that for my team? And what if I looked at their performance and said, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing that I could change or do better? So with that mentality of, hey, I'm the problem, I realized that I'm also the solution. I can have an influence on my team. And so my team turned it around. We really started just destroying goals and just really making a name for ourselves inside the company. The team ended up being the best team in our division. I had the best employees in the division, who were always getting promoted. Our team had just kind of become the planting ground for managers. And then, of course, I was promoted beyond that, and I had opportunities to manage more people and just learned a ton about leadership. But that foundation of taking ownership and responsibility,
Yeah.
that was the first domino that put everything else in motion. Fast forward quite a few years, probably about a decade, I left that company and got a job with a consulting firm in Washington D.C., which is tons of traffic. Anywhere you go, you're looking at a 90-minute commute, and you're going 20 miles, right? That just
Yeah.
really, really busy. And I was working for this consulting firm, and I remember sitting on the metro one day, and I looked around and I saw the faces of everybody on this metro, and they looked miserable. And I thought to myself, how long before my face looks like that? And it was a real, like, this is like kind of the second awakening, right? Like, oh my goodness, like this is the path I'm on. These
Yeah.
people have given their souls to their careers. So went home to my wife that night. We had a conversation. Hey, do we want to be in this area where everything's so busy? And long story short, we both agreed no. 8 weeks later, we moved into a house in North Carolina in the US. And at that point, I knew I had to do something else for a lot of different reasons, but I knew I had to do something else. So I started a leadership development company. A lot of my business or a lot of my experience had been in adult education, management consulting. And so I knew how to get in front of a room and present good leadership content. I had a couple of clients who were taking my courses who said, "Hey, do you do coaching?" And I was kind of like, sure, I could do coaching. Ended up coaching a couple of them out of their full-time jobs into their side hustles. And that just kind of took off from there. So now I actually do more of the coaching than I do of the training, but I still love to train. I still love to get in front of a group and really see the light bulbs go off and help
Yeah.
facilitate good conversation.
So do you do like big, like presentations and all that? Still do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. In fact, right before COVID, we have a big insurance company here. It's named Aflac. And I was in Oregon presenting to about 170 of their regional salespeople, sales leaders, and then we had a smaller group for just leaders. And so yeah, it was unreal. I loved it, being on stage, teaching my stuff, which was kind of a bit of a milestone, honestly, for my business to be presenting to that larger group.
Excellent. Wow. It sounds like fun, to be honest. That is so basically my next question I'm going to change a bit, because I'm not going to ask you if you think it's possible for entrepreneurs to have the best of both worlds. It's quite obvious that you think it is possible because that's what you've discovered. So why do you think that most people, as you say, all the ones on the metro with the grumpy faces, why do you think so many people just don't manage to attain to this? Top 3 reasons.
Yeah. Part of it, I think I would actually go back to the question that you didn't ask, because while I believe it's possible to have the life you want, I don't know that that's always the best of both worlds that people think it is. And so what I mean is, I don't believe that there's necessarily a work-life balance where you can create this balance. I think that there's very calculated, intentional work-life trade-offs that allow you to make a choice for something really, really important and discard things that are a lot less important. So to achieve proper work-life trade-offs, we really have to be thoughtful about what we choose and what we don't choose. One of those things for me is like I love watching sports. I love watching basketball. We used to have season tickets to a basketball team here in Phoenix. And I haven't watched now live sports, including the Super Bowl, in probably 5 or 6 years. Every now and then I'll catch a little bit of a game at a restaurant or somewhere that I'm at, but that's been one of those trade-offs. So that kind of rolls into the question of, well, why don't people achieve it? And first and foremost, some people just aren't willing to give up those types of things that consume a lot of time, that consume a lot of attention, but have very, very little value on the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is, and I found just in my model that I teach, is that people struggle to be consistent. People struggle to be correct, meaning they don't have the right tools and approaches. And people struggle to have a sense of control, where they're in charge of their effort, they're in charge of their intention, they're in charge of their intensity. And they don't recognize how those principles are actually impacting their performance in every area of their life, whether it be their personal life or their professional life, their business, their job, whatever area, those three principles must exist and be really operating at the highest levels if we want to get the best out of ourselves.
That's really good. Very insightful. Um, and so how do you see, like with your clients and obviously in personal experience, how can entrepreneurs that are very much stuck in the grumpy rut, without probably mastering those top things you just mentioned, how can they go from frustrated and sort of struggling with all of that to being able to kind of, enhance that personal side and make that balance, so to speak?
Yeah. So the effect of missing those principles, consistency, correctness, and control, that produces three very real emotions and situations that we all can relate to, especially if we've been entrepreneurs or we are
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. And that's the feeling of overwhelm and burnout. That's the feeling of hitting those plateaus and not being able to punch through. And that's the feeling of those roller coasters where we just can't seem to get a grip on things and we're kind of up and down, up and down. So what people need to do is understand why those emotions are happening, why those situations are happening, and reverse engineer, because they're very telling of what you're missing in your business or in your personal life based on what you're feeling.
Yep.
To where we always start with all of our clients is we make sure that you've got 4 key areas aligned. That's your vision, meaning where you want to go, your values, who you need to be, your beliefs, what you think about yourself, others, and your circumstances, and then your habits, your actual actions that you take.
Yep. Yep.
And let me put it into a little bit of an analogy that will help people understand it. Let's say that you and I decide we're going to go to the store. Okay. We now have a clear vision of where we want to go. We want to go to the store. So we walk over to our car and we get in and we can drive to the store. We can drive very fast. We can drive recklessly. We can drive very slow and cautiously. We can be very attentive. So who we are is going to determine how we drive, right?
Yep.
That's our values. Now, every journey, every travel is going to experience a yellow light. Okay. Now, as we're driving up and we see that yellow light, that opportunity for us to slow down and stop or speed up, what matters in that moment is what we believe. We either will believe that we can make it, we can make the light before it turns red, or we will believe that we won't make it, or we might even believe that if we attempt to make it, we will die. And so if we believe whatever we believe, that's going to then impact the action that we take.
Yep.
If we believe we won't make it, hit the brake, right? We slow down. If we believe we will, hit the gas. We go. If we're ultra petrified, then we might stop 15 feet before the actual line, right? So recognizing how those show up and the way that we believe actually impacts our actions, that is the name of the game. Be very clear on where you're trying to go. Be really clear on what you value and who you're going to be. You can be in business, be incredibly unethical. You can cut corners. You can do it the wrong way. And people appear to be successful in that way. Or you can be somebody who's going to do it the right way by the book. You're going to follow, you're going to do it the right way with value. So, and then our beliefs, how we believe about the market or our product or our boss or our employees, and then our actions. So that's where I would say for anybody to start, really look very clearly, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? What is that vision?
It's cool. And it applies everywhere, doesn't it? It's like the whole business, personal, and the whole lot together. And I guess this probably then brings me to the next question, which you obviously mentioned that you've coached quite a few people, obviously out of the corporate into their own side hustles and, obviously into the entrepreneurial world, which is a difficult journey.
Huge.
So I was going to say, what's your top tips for brand new entrepreneurs or people kind of entering that world, if you like, that probably don't even know that all this, these challenges exist, but perhaps until they're into it. You probably just explained it though. Have you got anything further to add?
Yeah, I would actually I would zero in even more on that vision, because what people do, especially new entrepreneurs, they get so excited about what that could be.
Yeah.
And so they think, okay, I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna hit this revenue. I'm gonna generate this product. I'm gonna do all of these things, right? But what they don't do is they don't think about the other aspects. When we think about our vision, it has to be holistic. It has to include, what do I want my family relationships to be like? What do I want the culture at my business to look like?
Yeah.
Because all of that, what do I want my health to look like? How do I want to serve in my community? If we don't take it all into account, then that won't properly inform us where and how we should be spending our time. And so that's why I kind of go back to, you can't totally have the best of both worlds, but you can have the world that you want based on what's most important.
And what
But
you're
that
prepared to
takes,
sacrifice. Yeah.
yeah, it takes thoughtful plan, and everything does. Anything that's of value will always take sacrifice. So it really takes thoughtful planning, it takes preparation, and it takes sacrifice and dedication. But if we can, so just as an example, we have our clients very first write out what their vision is. Some clients produce 5 pages of what that vision looks like, because they're describing sometimes even the way that they'll have disagreements with their spouse. They're describing in total detail the way that they will engage with their kids, how they'll walk through the door when they come home. All of these, like, just being really, really granular, not only helps us paint a really clear vision, but it also helps us to be prepared for, okay, when we've got to make trade-offs, here's why we're making those trade-offs, because
Yeah.
here's what we want to end up with on the other side.
That is really good. Really, really like that. That's cool. So tell me then, what do you do and how do you guys help people with all of this? Give us like a quick overview of your Greer method.
Yeah, so we I mean, if I was more prepared, maybe I'd have like my diagram up and I'd show you all that. But essentially, we teach them the methodology, which is the components of consistency, correctness, and control. So we help people be consistent by helping them define their vision, define their values, recognize their disempowering beliefs, the ones that make them hit the brake,
Yeah.
and turn them into empowering beliefs that help them hit the gas. We teach them about how we automate habits, and truly you can automate habits. That's science that's been around since the 60s. We teach them how to automate those habits so it actually becomes easy to do the things that you don't want to do. Then we give them the right tools. We give them new approaches, new strategies. If it's for a business, we might be looking at their forecast. How do they forecast? How do they create a budget? How do they make sure that they're getting the most out of their assets? If it's for an individual, we're teaching them, how can we help you be more influential, be more persuasive? We're helping you learn, how do you generate confidence so that you can just crush that next client meeting? And then we're helping people to really dial in their intentions, their effort, their intensity. So they're not just cruising on autopilot. So when they go into that team meeting, they've already thought about, again, that vision. What is it that I'm trying to accomplish from this meeting?
Yeah.
How do I want to lead this meeting? What do I need to believe about my team in this meeting? So once they understand the model and kind of the intricacies of the model, they can apply it to any situation that they come in contact with. And it truly is a macro strategy and it's a micro strategy, from huge company strategy down to a dinner time strategy, right?
Yeah.
And then we teach them to build routine.
Good. That's excellent. I will get you to flick through some links and things later, just
Sure.
if you got a website or whatever that we can direct people to, that would be great.
Of course.
Cool. Well, we could talk about this topic probably all day because I have no doubt that you have like a lifetime of information to share on this.
Yeah, I could talk a long time. That's true.
But we probably have to wrap up at some point. So is there any last little bits that you want to add, or do you feel we've covered your main passionate points for now?
Yeah, I think the key is there's kind of three mantras that we use in the business as we're working with clients. And really they encapsulate the whole model. And the very first is that the performance of routine creates routine performance. And so as people who don't like structure, people who don't like to be so scheduled, once they understand the value of a routine, your performance can actually be predictable, and it can be steady and maintainable and sustainable. So that's the first one. The performance of routine creates routine performance. The second one is that persistence is more important than perfection. So again, entrepreneurs, they're always trying to put out the very most, the very best product. Credit to them, right? This is their brand, this is who they are. But what matters more is what you do when the product doesn't work, what you do when you're not sure it's a home run. And that's where that persistence comes in. And then the third one is your attention to the intention is your opportunity. We all go through things where we're very much on autopilot. And if we just pay attention to what is my intention right now, then we can get the results and we can actually have a greater impact in the situation. So those would be the three kind of simple form, mantras that will help you probably get through most difficulty if you really think about them.
Yeah, like them. I'll have to write them down and have a good think about those ones.
There you go.
Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's been very insightful and helpful. And we will look forward to no doubt chatting again at some point.
Yes, for sure. I hope we can stay friends.